Welcome back to another episode of 40,000 Layers, where we're gonna we're gonna say hello first, apparently, and carry on talking about the Tyranids. Obviously, I finished painting Eduardo and broke him and have fixed him, but I'm now going to be painting his brother, who doesn't have a name yet, but I'll figure it out.
Jedward.
Now that's all I'm going to think of.
Jedward Sponge Hands.
Okay. Great, Jedward. Great. Thanks. He's a little bit front heavy, so I'm gonna have to put weights in the base, so that it doesn't keep falling over. But on to the Tyranid lore. Woo! Okay. I don't know what that intro was.
Ooh, spooky Tyranids. Well, interestingly, we're gonna start by talking about Tyran, or Tyran, or Tyran.
Or something.
Was formerly Tyran Primus. It is a dead world. It is like just bare rock. But it wasn't always just bare rock.
Yeah.
It was originally a temperate ocean world.
Oh.
On the edge of the galaxy, where the Adeptus Mechanicus had a small research station.
Oh.
And it was there that the first official meeting with the Tyranids happened.
Yay.
So,
did they? Oh, was it like aliens, and they tried to research the alien, and then it all went terribly, terribly wrong?
Well, so it was the first contact with the Tyranids.
Okay.
First recorded contact. But you know how writers are. They like to be tricksy, and they like to be like, oh, what about this, thing? So there's possibilities that there's I think there's illusions, and there may even be instances where they meet the Tyranids before, but they didn't know that they were the Tyranids, or maybe it was just gene stealers, and the gene stealers tend to be the precursors to the Tyranids, the full Tyranid, invasion. And there's no knowledge if any of the other factions in the galaxy knew about the Tyranids existing.
It's not like they'd share the information, is it?
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like they didn't tell humanity or the Imperium if they did, so
I bet they just pointed the Tyranids in the Imperium's direction, like, oh look, there's loads of people over there, go eat them. That's what I do. They have tons of planets.
They do. One thing that was noted before the appearance of Hive Fleet Behemoth, which was the name of the first Tyranid Hive Fleet to be encountered, there were a lot of recorded planets which were vibrant and full of life, like last time they were entered into the records, being completely barren rocks just floating around, like nothing left. And it was reported to the Adeptus Administratum, who's kind of like the Imperial record keepers. And no one did anything about it. They were like, no, shit. It's a weird fucking galaxy, though. What do you want from us? And, it's a massive galaxy-spanning bureaucracy. Like, you can't expect them to do anything quickly.
Or anything, full stop.
Yeah, or anything.
We just own this planet. It doesn't mean we have to look after it. Stupid Imperium.
So, the research station on Tyran continued to explore, find, and report a large collection of barren rocks, like dead worlds, around them. Unbeknownst to them, Hive Fleet Behemoth was on the way.
Yay.
Essentially, what Hive Fleet Behemoth was doing was consuming worlds just to replenish their reserves of biomass.
Mm-hmm.
Because they, essentially they had to have come from somewhere, and they had to go through the black space that is the distance between galaxies.
Yeah.
So by the time they showed up on Tyran, or showed up at Tyran, they had kind of replenished themselves. The essential of like stopping at a gas station to refill the gas and get some snacks.
They're not starving anymore, but they like to eat. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they always like to eat.
Like to eat. It's like me. Joining the Tyranids.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, you can't, because you're already joining the Necrons, and they don't eat at all.
I know, but what a grouping that would be. Because the Necrons forsook their biological states.
Yeah.
The Tyranids can eat it, and then everyone's happy.
This is your 40k ship, the Tyranids and the Necrons, because they could be best buddies together.
I think that would be really effective. So.
Hey, now let me tell you.
Although, what happens?
Friends.
I know that I can just see them like skipping along to each planet. Gonna do some murder.
With my best friend.
Oh, that makes me sad.
I shouldn't encourage this, should I? Because it is.
Oh, that's so
like,
cute.
you're already wrong with loving the Necrons.
I'm not wrong. You're wrong. How about that?
Okay. I mean, it's a good argument. Yeah.
I know I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but
okay.
If the Tyranids leave every planet like a barren rock, do they leave all the metal scrap and blah, blah, blah? Or is it like everything is just like bare bones back to the core of the earth kind of?
It's anything organic, so bio.
All right, so the Necrons are fine. Okay, that's what I was worried about. Necrons are good, right?
Yeah.
Whew.
No, as far as can be told, the Tyranids have no interest in the Necrons.
Yeah.
I think they've fought a few times, but they don't have any particular interest in them.
Star-crossed best friends.
And the Tyranids also have had no interest in chaos until recently.
Star-crossed best friends. I'm going to pitch this idea. Who do I need to write this book?
I don't know.
It's going to be like...
We'll get Andy Chambers to do it.
All right. I'm sure he'll agree.
I'm pretty sure it's Andy Chambers. I can't remember who it is who did all the Ultramarines writing, but yeah.
Sorry for all the massive aside. Yeah, it was
no, it's fine.
But I think that this needs to happen, and other people need to know about it.
Right. Well, hopefully the word will get out.
I might kit bash a Necron and a Tyranid holding hands. I'm not gonna lie.
Skipping through fields of slaughter.
Be so good. I could get some new bases.
So. Anyway,
they were at Tyran, whatever, and they're not hangry. They just like to eat.
Yeah. Luckily, well, I mean, luckily, the outpost on Tyran did get some warning. A starship that was surveying another dead world encountered a cloud as it warped into the edge of the Tyran system. It essentially got hit multiple times by what seemed to be mines, but they were like organic mines. It was like organic tissue, but they exploded and like did damage to the vessel.
Being gross, okay.
It just about managed to get back to the orbit over Tyran Primus and let them know that something was fucking weird. And a week later, the sky was black.
They should have just left it. They should have just accepted defeat. Why did they lead them back to the planet?
I mean, like, they were already on their way, you know. So the outpost, or at least the main outpost, like research outpost, was in the ruins of ancient volcanoes on a chain of islands.
Mm-hmm.
Was heavily fortified because of the intense storms that happened on the ocean, on this ocean world, and also the giant sea creatures in it as well.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Unfortunately, or fortunately, you could say both, because it was so far away from regular Imperial space, it was on the outskirts of the outskirts of the outskirts.
Yeah.
They essentially had to over-prepare for the possibility of, like, raiders and any xenos species they run into. They had, I think, 4 networks of big planetary defense, like laser grids.
Wow, okay.
Protected by void shields and essentially, like, encased in ceramite. Ceramite is essentially kind of like plastic. It's like
super strong.
Yeah, it's like concrete, but a lot more
Okay.
able to. I can pull it up if you want to know more about it, but that's a weight so that will lead us down a whole.
It's a strong.
Yeah, strong material. There were also a whole load of anti-air emplacements and a network of bunkers and bastions to basically, like, just protect the whole place. Like, they were ready for an attack, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if the Dark Eldar showed up, if the Drukhari showed up, and they were like, hey, evil space sex pervert things,
they would have,
they would have found it difficult.
Okay.
Partially because they, the usual Drukhari tactics where they, like, draw the enemy out
wouldn't work. They just, like, turtle in.
Especially with it being a Mechanicus place. Like, even if there were civilians on the planet, the Mechanicus would be like, beep, boop, beep. Are they attacking machines? No. Then I don't care.
And I'm not interested.
I believe they also had a decent amount of Skitarii bodyguards. Skitarii are like the foot soldiers of the Adeptus Mechanicus. We'll get into them when we do the Adeptus Mechanicus, don't worry.
Okay.
And a commander whose name was Magos Varnak. They also had a decent amount of Thunderbolts, which are essentially like the kind of dogfighting style, the equivalent of like an F-16.
All right.
You know what an F-16? Have you seen Top Gun?
Yes.
Those planes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a while. Yeah, they've got like the big missiles on the wings. Yeah.
Kind of similar to that.
Okay.
Ish. And then they had 3 light cruisers as well, and an entire regiment of Imperial Guard.
I love how all this really helped them.
Well, you don't know that it didn't.
I mean, I know that it's a rock now, so I'm suspecting that it didn't help them that much.
Yeah, I kind of buried the lead there, didn't I, I guess?
It didn't always used to be that way.
It didn't always used to be that way.
Oh.
So the second that the Tyranid, well, let's say, the second that the aliens, these big bioships, entered orbit, the defense lasers kicked in. And for more than an hour, they were just firing into space.
Oh no.
Which gives you an idea of like how much was up there and how much was turning up.
It is like aliens, like when they're in the corridor and they
Yeah,
have
I mean,
they have the turrets just going.
yeah.
Love that film so much.
So, at that point, the defense lasers, the planetary defense lasers, got to the point where they were essentially almost melting themselves with how much they were firing.
Yeah.
Stopped firing because the ships left.
Hmm.
And Magos Varnak, so encouraged by this, sent his 3 light cruisers to chase them off. Basically, like, Falzinos, that's what you get for messing with the might of the Imperium. Go kill them. And the light cruisers chased them and were destroying them and fighting them. And they followed them into that spore cloud.
Uh-huh.
Where they found that big, scary attacking force was about 12 ships out of over 1,000.
Oh no. Yeah.
And having lured the light cruisers away, they turned around, charged, and devoured everything in there and like ripped them apart.
Heck yeah, they did.
Such was the ridiculous assault that the hull of these ships were literally shredded apart by bioorganisms. Like, we're not even talking like, some kind of bioplasma shot or anything. It's just literally angry animals jumping on the ship and ripping it apart.
Knife hands. Get to the nice, tasty humans inside.
Knife hands.
Knife hands.
And it was so quick that only one ship lasted long enough to warn Tyran.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't even completed.
Oh. They were just like, we're all being eaten alive.
Yeah, within a couple of minutes of this happening, pretty much all of the ships were completely devoid of any life.
Don't mess with the Tyranids.
Don't mess with the Tyranids. The High Fleet then went back to Tyran. And proceeded to just drop spores on the entire planet.
Good.
And even though they had good defenses, you can't really do much. It'd be the equivalent of being outside with an umbrella trying to stop the rain from hitting the ground.
Yeah.
You can stop some rain from hitting the ground, but you're still going to get wet feet.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I hope they left.
No.
Okay.
There was no. I mean, their light cruisers had just been destroyed. Like, their ships had just been destroyed.
They don't have any spare, like, escape plan.
Well, no, because I mean, they may have like a small little thing, but the entirety of the planet is surrounded by ships now. And essentially, what happened first was the Tyranids fell into the water. And ripped apart all of those, like, scary aquatic monsters that we were talking about earlier.
I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. And then burst onto the land from the sea.
Yay! We're raining down from the sky. We're climbing up out of the water. What you gonna do? Nothing.
and charged at the Imperial outpost.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Imperial Guard managed to fight back a wave, another wave, because they were from Katachan. If you know Katachan Jungle Warriors,
Yes.
they are the Rambo-looking motherfuckers.
Yeah. I've seen one with a guy with a giant knife and an eye patch.
Mm. They are the ones who live on the death world of Katachan, which essentially the entirety of the planet is always trying to kill you.
Right, yeah.
One of my favorite stories, which when we talk about the Katachan jungle fighters, we'll probably get into, but there's a frog that explodes in like I think it's either deadly gas or just an actual like explosion of equivalent to like a grenade,
Mm-hmm.
except for it's in like a mile radius.
What the fuck?
It's this tiny little frog which if you piss it off it just blows up.
You made me so angry.
Yeah, you know the little the little like meme frogs that were like me that beeped like that.
Yeah.
They're about like that.
Oh,
So they're
God.
not like big frogs or anything. They're just little frogs. Yeah.
But the Katachan are badasses. Or Rambo.
They're badasses, and they were used to fighting, like dangerous creatures. So they did manage to hold for quite a while. Especially the smaller ones who came out first. Standard Tyranid tactics is to send these guys out and see what they
not
see what
waste
they can do.
resources yet.
Yeah, the Hormagaunts, Gene Stealers, just slowly got ripped apart by the Guardsmen and other defenses. And there were also the Thunderbolt fighters. They were zipping around, like giving support where needed, and basically shooting down these spores as they were like flying down. Again, the whole umbrella metaphor, but
they tried their best. Okay.
Unfortunately, eventually, one of the defense lasers, let's say, broke.
Yeah, it probably melted itself.
Well, not quite. Literally thousands of gargoyles, those flying ones, flew down the barrel of the defense laser and clogged it.
Good for them.
So that when it fired, it basically melted itself instead. And not long after, a Carnifex managed to get in to one of the other defense lasers and ripped apart basically the coolant stuff, so it can't fire anymore.
Okay.
The Thunderbolts, the F-16 flying, the fighter ships, eventually all also fell, with some of them, like the spores from the Tyranids, essentially choking up their engines.
Yeah.
Or literally being ripped out of there by flying Tyranids.
When you talk about like battles and stuff, and you don't really try and visualize it, but if you sit for a second and just think about like the clouds of spores flying, floating around, hitting the engines, just a random Tyranid here and there flying about, it's very destructive.
Yeah. And unfortunately, with those being taken out, there's nothing to stop the spores starting to fall on the outpost.
Mm-hmm. Your umbrella is broken.
And an hour after the fall of the defense lasers and stuff, the outpost had essentially been overrun. All of the planetary defense lasers were down. The Katachan jungle fighters had retreated multiple times and actually fled.
They fled. That's illegal.
It is, but that just shows you how unstoppable this attack was, where it
Mm.
was like,
There's no end in sight either, right? Like the whole planet is,
yes.
as you say. So, where are they gonna flee to?
Well, they fled into the rain in hope of basically like escaping to just anywhere where the Tyranids weren't.
Like, oh,
But
we'll just leave you to have the outpost. Just let us live.
keep in mind that
They'd never
they
met
had,
them. Yeah.
yeah, they had no idea what they were dealing with. So it's just, you know,
Mm.
at this point, it's a few hours after the initial attack.
Great.
Only the command bunker is left,
Oh.
and is being hammered by the bigger Tyranids. Magos Varnak, the one in charge, could see a little bit. There are a few displays still working, like looking outside. He could see literally a sea of Tyranids.
Oh.
And eventually they broke through the gates, and they broke through the last walls that were needed to break through to get into the command bunker. Soldiers with flamers, and here's a little visual for you. Sometimes they had to fight with their bare hands.
God, because they were running out of everything, I suppose. Gosh. Yeah, no thanks. I'll just
Like
not ever fight the Tyranids.
Even Eduardo, having to fight him with your bare hands, like,
He's got knife hands. What are you
yeah,
gonna do
exactly.
against that? Oh.
He Varnak, the Magos,
Yeah.
Adeptus Mechanicus boy, finished his final transmission, and sent a data codex, poof, down into the bottom of the outpost into the planet, essentially.
Okay. It's like
that.
Go
A year later would be recovered by an inquisitor.
Oh.
And they would actually manage to get video and audio recordings of how the Tyranid assault happened.
Oh.
And the entire so this is people who know 40k will know this guy, Inquisitor Fidus Cryptman. Late Cryptman, who essentially went on to have a little bit of crusade against the Tyranids. And not the best crusade against it. Was one of the bad crusades.
Oh.
We'll talk about him very quickly for a second in a bit.
Yes.
But so when he got there a year later, the planet was dead. There was nothing left. There wasn't even an ocean.
Just a big old rock. Some metal about.
He reviewed the data codex, found out about the Tyranids, ran from Tyran, and he actually, that's how they got their name, the Tyranids, because of Tyran, the planet. And that began the Tyrannic Wars and them having to deal with High Fleet Behemoth, which the threat of which ended at the Battle of Macrack. And the final words of Magos Varnak before he was ripped apart by Tyranids and consumed along with everyone else was, "We cannot live with this. Mankind cannot live through this. In a single day, they have covered this planet with a flood of living blades and needle-fanged mouths. Kill one, and 10 take its place. If they are truly without number, then our race is doomed to a violent death before every shred of our civilization is scoured away by a force more voracious than the fires of hell themselves. Death by the machine god, death is here.
Nice and positive, then.
I mean, can you blame him?
No. Oh.
So, Inquisitor Cryptman essentially is famous for enjoying exterminatuses. He's
Oh.
yeah, he's kind of where the meme of exterminatus comes from a little bit.
Okay.
Because he took the idea that, especially with orcs, he was from the Ordo Xenos, especially with orcs and especially with Tyranids, the only answer to these threats
Yeah.
was essentially to scour a planet. Like, once they're there, you know, if he finds even like a small sniff of gene stealers, he's gonna exterminate that planet, because otherwise it means the Tyranids turn up, and he doesn't want that to happen. He saw what happened on Tyrant.
He's like on it. Okay.
Yeah. Here's a quote from Cryptman. One cannot consider the fate of a single man, nor 10, nor 100, nor 1,000. Billions will live and die by our actions here, and we have not the luxury to count the cost.
I mean, he's not wrong if it works.
Yeah.
Like, humanity as a race rather than, just this whole planet. Or 10 planets. At least we have that one left.
He was also responsible for distracting, I think it was Hive Fleet Leviathan. The way they did that was they led them... Yeah, they led Hive Fleet Leviathan into an orc empire. And Leviathan ended up getting into a big war with the Greenskins for ages.
And everyone loved it.
The problem is after fighting for so long with the orcs, there are tendrils and parts of Hive Fleet Leviathan that are now very much stronger, and they have like new types of Tyranids that are like very tough.
So. I wanna, God, what types of Tyranids are like orky tough? I wanna know. Look, this is Leviathan.
I think the Hive Guard are a good example of something that I think came from the... Yeah, so they're called the Tyrant Guard. They don't have any like individual instincts. They're just big shields for the important Tyranids. Oh no, sorry. Those are actually, yeah, those are taken from the DNA of Space Marines. Oh, possibly, at least.
I'm sorry for always asking the questions that you don't know.
Oh no,
the answers to, but I need to know.
No, it's maybe even like the Bio Titans and the bigger guys, because there are some really really big Tyranids.
Oh, this one looks like a snail. Don't mind me. I'm just looking up Tyranids now.
Okay, yeah. So we now move on to the end of the First Tyrannic War.
Ooh.
Which is the Battle of Macrack.
Okay. I'm ready.
And this is a quote from a chaplain of the Ultramarines chapter, who is called Orton Cassius. The blasphemy of the Tyranids is such that the only one solution is acceptable: extermination. There can be only two sides in a fight. Choose carefully, lest you and I find ourselves on different sides. So essentially, the Battle of Macrack was I think probably the closest the Ultramarines ever got to complete destruction.
Oh, well. The Ultramarines? Sorry, my brain just like shorted out there.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
they're not allowed to lose. The Emperor will not be happy.
yeah. The Emperor would not be happy.
It's like make you his
But
15th favorite son or something.
so Rabute Gilliman,
Gilliman.
the Primarch,
Mm-hmm.
had established essentially the realm of Ultramar, and he was a great. We'll talk about him and the Ultramarines properly when we talk about them. Um, he was a great administrator,
Mm-hmm.
by far the best in the Primarchs. Like he was really good at running and making people feel appreciated, and he'd had time for like little details that where people would be like, oh, don't worry about this, I'll fix this. He's like, no, we have to care about everything. And Rabute Gilliman's kind of a cool dude. The Ultramarines are whatever, they're just Space Marines basically. The problem is they got heavily focused on at one point in Games Workshop's history.
Yeah.
So there's so much literature on them, and they're one of those like they always do the cool stuff, they always win, like blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So a lot of other faction, fans of other factions and stuff just get sick of the Ultramarines turning up because they always end up kicking their favorites.
I do know that it's like the most sort of well known and like quote popular, and whenever someone thinks of Warhammer, they if I speak to someone about it, they're like, oh, like the blue soldier guys.
The
And
blue
I'm like,
guys, yeah.
No,
Actually,
actually,
yeah. But yeah, the Ultramarines have fought wars, Orc wars.
That's the only way to hear
Loads
that
of
word now. Like, assume it's
war.
orc war.
Loads of rebellions and secessionists, Tau incursions, and Necrons even. Essentially, they were warned that High Fleet Behemoth was coming in their direction.
Uh-oh,
And I believe I need to double check this. Let me just have a look here. Yes, the chapter master of the big forearms, but big hands man. His name is Marnius Calgar, and he was the chapter master. Is the chapter master of the Ultramarines.
Mm-hmm.
He decided that Macrack was going to be, one of the earlier ports of call, and basically improved the defenses on. Macrack is essentially the homeworld for the Ultramarines, and also for Guilliman. Like, so it's where he landed when he got yeeted.
Yeah, I assumed so because it's also blue. So
Yeah.
blue paint, so it must be where they come from.
There were massive amounts of cruisers and destroyers and frigates, and also the Ultramarines' own personal spaceships called battle barges.
Battle barges. Can't just drop that in there. Sorry.
It's essentially it's the largest warship the Space Marine Adeptus Astartes use.
Mm-hmm.
They usually have 2 or 3.
Okay.
For example, the Space Wolves have one that's called the All-Father's Honor, which is just like fucking Space Wolves. Assholes.
So they all prep and turn up and they're like, we're going to sort this out.
Yeah.
We're going to show those Adeptus Mechanicus how it's done.
So, Macrack was very well defended between a giant fleet and a bulked up orbital defense, And, also they're working on, like, bunkers and all of that crap, like, all the stuff that Space Marines and the Imperials love to do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, from when they started that, a few weeks later, the kind of like outliers, the kind of scouts in the Macrack system were attacked by Tyranids. And this is like the brunt of the High Fleet behemoth, because the Tyranid High Fleets kind of send tendrils out.
Yeah, it's like all. Yeah.
This is like the center of it. Like it just kind of swept into Macrack. Literally, talking about sweeping, destroyed, like fucked over the strike cruisers, the fleet, and just flew down and started sporing all over the planet.
Oh no!
Yeah.
They were supposed to save the day.
And Calgar was like, oh shit. Immediately, like, combined the forces that they have on the ground into 3 separate armies to deal with this. One of which was made up of the First Company veterans, which are the Terminators. I don't know how much we've talked about Terminators, but they're essentially, the Space Marines have power armor.
Yeah, yeah.
The Terminators have Terminator armor, which is like power armor squared.
Yeah, we have spoken about it because I thought of Arnie. Being badass.
And essentially set them out to defend certain areas, like Planetary Defense Force, First Company, and the largest group was Calgar's group, which essentially, while the others were setting up, was slowing down the Tyranids. So they'd like turn around, fight, die as they retreat, run away again, turn around, fight, and just to let everyone set up their defenses. And they kept fighting, and then towards the end of all this fighting, the fight got to Calgar himself.
Okay, let's see how he does.
And he was heavily wounded.
Okay.
And he essentially was like, if I die, well, he's like, if I stay on the planet, we're gonna die. If I stay here, I'm gonna die, and like there won't be anyone leading things. So he withdrew, wounded and everything, to his battle barge, which was still working mostly. Refused any medical attention, or like essentially he was like, keep me alive, but I need to be conscious. I need to be doing things. Took command of the remnants of the fleet, and essentially was trying to figure out a way to come out of this without losing, pretty much, without the complete destruction of the world. Around about the same time, the Tyranids, what's the best way to say this? The main fleet of Tyranids arrived at Macrack.
Oh, because they'd only sent out a little tendril?
Yeah. Well, it wasn't a little one, but essentially the rest of them. Yeah.
For the Tyranids.
Calgar, having seen that, or not having seen, having guessed that there's probably not going to be any reinforcements for a while, started striking with his really small, comparatively, force at isolated Tyranid vessels. As they basically moved to land in different places on Macrack, he would essentially like fly around and just be like, this one here, it's by itself, and then blow it up. And
Get it? Small victories.
and a shit ton of Tyranids were killed, and just the vessels were destroyed.
Heck yeah.
But you remember what that Magos guy said? When you kill one, there's like 10
Yeah.
extra.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like that.
I think planet's gone. Planet's kind of
And
ruined.
it was a similar thing to what happened on Tyran, where essentially, like the guns were still firing, but the Tyranids were landing all over the place, and the fortresses with the guns in were under siege, essentially, ultimately.
Yeah.
And if the guns fall, then the Tyranids land more.
Yeah.
However, one of the good things is that they still had ships in orbit. They still had a fleet of some kind. So, and they also had their orbital guns. They had more orbital guns. They were better orbital guns. And once the hive ships had dropped their cargo, dropped their the spores and everything to the planet, they retreated. And Calgar chased them.
Yeah. No. I don't know.
Because he was like, they're not allowed to leave.
I'm
they've
mad.
come here. They've come here for a fight and they fucked shit up. Now it's my turn. So he was like, my Ultramarines have got this shit back on the planet. You know, my guys have got this. I'm a run off. Well, not run off. I'm gonna chase these bitches. And the Ultramarines basically had to hold out in fortresses and bunkers as literal waves of Tyranids just like smashed against them. Retreating as they overrun certain sections, like slowly, you know, like Mania's Cowgirl was doing earlier, like it's a retreating action. They a trench gets overrun, they abandon the trench and slowly walk backwards, just killing this like sea of Tyranids that get closer and closer and closer. Going deeper into the fortresses, killing as many Tyranids as they can. Literal titans wandering around the planet, just like either getting overrun or just stomping on Tyranids until, you know, like there were I think it may have been all I think all of them, all of the Titans, the Imperial Titans, were eventually like dragged, like pushed over essentially, and then ripped apart.
Aww.
Ammunition ran low. You know what? One really good thing
about the Tyranids?
Supplies. No, not about Tyranids. Supplies didn't run that low. Ammunition did, but they didn't really have
food shortages. Well, they're dying too fast.
Yeah, like
food.
To give you an idea of how ridiculous the Tyranid assault is, especially in this kind of vibe and numbers and everything. They had ammunition intended to last for months of siege.
Mm-hmm.
And it like I'm not sure exactly the space of time, but I'm going to say like maybe a couple of weeks or something. They were running low on ammunition.
This is why you gotta have your factories working, even if there's a Tyranid invasion? Question mark. Yeah, that's not ideal, really. They kind of need those deadly lasers.
Yeah. So, the fighting is still going on, and I was going to say Macrack, that's not his name.
Calgar's gone off for a jaunt.
Had lost contact with the first company, which is the Terminators, who were defending the laser silos, the orbital stuff. And no one knew anything of what was happening with one of the other garrisons that was to the south. And Calgar was like, all right, these two ultramarine companies, you're going off and deploying onto these two places, essentially. Like, let me know what's happening down there, and go back them up if possible. So on the north and the south ends of the planet, the third company landed and the seventh company landed. And they got to see what was going on, which was essentially like massive craters where titans had exploded.
Oh.
Literal like piles that they were like, is that a mountain? Oh no, it's just a pile of Tyranid corpses. Okay. At the southern fortress, which is where the seventh company landed, they linked up with the survivors of the garrison, and then had to push into the fortress that had fallen.
Oh,
because essentially the Tyranids broke into the fortress and went down into it, and some of there were still some survivors up top, or people who'd managed to get out of the fortress. They then had to push in to clear it out.
Break the fight their own fortress. Oh god.
Yeah. In the north, third company landed and got attacked immediately as soon as it landed. Like literally coming out from random tunnels in the ground and in hills and stuff, and bunkers. They did manage to keep them at bay until the Thunderhawks. You remember did we talk about Thunderhawks? They're like the F-16.
Yeah, because you were like, do you know what they are?
I can't remember if they were Thunderhawks we were talking about. The Thunderhawks turned up and managed to basically give supporting fire enough to kind of like make them retreat back into the tunnels and everything.
So they could land at least.
Yeah, and the captain of the third company was like, you know what? Bring down our dreadnoughts, please. we're going into this like carefully. So they went down into the tunnels with dreadnoughts and flamers and all those lovely things, and just started to clear out the corridors, reclaim their dead. There was like lictors and shit in there.
Oh, that's spooky.
They were either like pretending to be dead and then would jump up and like rip apart a squad, or it got to the point where it's such a common occurrence for it got to the point where it was such a common occurrence for ambushes to come out of nowhere that the Ultramarines, like clearing out the places, would just flame a corridor before they went down it.
Yeah, I mean, makes sense.
Yeah.
If you see a quote dead Tyranid, you shoot it, and then you move past it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not messing with that.
So, even with all of this going on, it still seemed like everything was fucked.
I mean, they're there now. It's their planet now.
And so Mardius Calgar injured, right? Up on his
flying around, having a fight,
trying to, and he's a good leader. He's tactically great. Like the delays worked really well. The problem is, there's not really any tactics that actually work when you have such numerical superiority.
Yeah. Not a lot you can do. Doesn't matter how clever you are, and they're just going to overwhelm eventually.
Yeah. And so during these delaying we're going to talk about him getting injured, basically. During the and yeah, we're going to talk about him being injured, and essentially when the the balance shifted. Because the hive mind is a sentient entity,
Mm-hmm.
it can learn and it can adapt. It had realized that the core crux of the efficient defense and the kind of like the beating of its own tactics was coming from Calgar.
Oh no.
So it decided to create essentially a bioorganism to go after him, which is classified for the Imperials as what's called a Swarm Lord.
Yeah.
It essentially, the best way I can describe it is it updated the tactics of the Tyranids,
Yeah, because they have
whereby,
their
yeah,
they have their like brains of the groups. And that, I mean, that makes sense why they figured out it was Calgor.
yeah.
And
I
yeah.
mean, lictors can literally eat brains and be like, okay, so Calgar's in charge.
Yeah. Yeah, true.
So what it did was essentially throw the smaller, less important Tyranids, just like wave upon wave, just threw them at the Ultramarines and at Calgar. Until the point where they got used to mindless swarm tactics.
Yeah.
And then the Swarm Lord turned up, ironically, I guess, considering it's swarm tactics, and started to do things like encircle and attack in a place it didn't actually want to properly attack.
Mm-hmm.
So like there'd be a dangerous attack on the left flank, and everyone's like, "Oh shit, the left flank being attacked," while they like circle around and cut off the right flank.
Yeah. Actually using tactics. Okay.
Yes. One of the things it did also was throw in like a brood of Carnifexes just to charge in and like fuck shit up, which was, and at this point Calgar was like, oh shit, there's some intelligence going in, there's some strategy and tactics here. This isn't just a mindless consumption, this is,
This is
but
brains.
it was a bit late because the tactics had started to play out. And from the ground, remember we talked about Raveners?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like the Ultramarines and other forces are like in the trenches, like desperately holding off, and then fucking Raveners just burst out of the ground.
Get them. Get them all.
And by so essentially they burst out of the ground, and it's like, okay, we're Ultramarines, we can fight in hand-to-hand combat too. Problem is while you're fighting the things that just came out of the ground, all the things in front of you that you've been holding off can push forwards.
Mm-hmm. And some of them can fly.
And in doing all of this, they distracted the Ultramarines from protecting a really big tank called a Baneblade, which is a badass tank.
Badass tank.
And literally threw Carnifex at it and tore it apart, which pretty much destroyed the entire flank.
Yeah, they're done.
Yeah. Yeah, oh, yeah.
Just accept that your home planet's gone, buddies.
Again, like the Ultramarines and the Auxilia, the Imperial Guard essentially, would fight and retreat and fight and retreat. Sending Ultramarines, sending Space Marines to like important sections to defend and all of these things. The problem is again, they're just too much.
Never ends.
when you have like, even if you have 10,000 troops, right?
Hmm.
If the enemy has 1 billion troops,
Yeah, your losses are much more significant than
it's
their
so
losses.
much more. Especially when you have cornerstones like Space Marines. Every Space Marine lost
Hmm.
is the equivalent of like 10,000 troops for the
Yeah.
enemy. And when you have an intelligent, uh, when you have an intelligence behind the combat of the enemy, this like big enemy, then like they single out Space Marines, they try and take them out, high value target kind of thing. And it means that even as Calgar is like switching tactics and doing new things and desperately trying to like one up for a little bit of a gain, you know, the Swarm Lord is like, I see what you're doing there, and I'm gonna change things. Eventually, the Swarm Lord managed to find Calgar in the battle lines and led a charge with Tyrant Guards and Tyranid warriors right at him.
Oh, does how does he die? Horribly.
So, as they see essentially their chapter master, their leader, being like attacked from all sides and desperately defending himself and the area, the Ultramarines like, oh shit, help, and like ran off to help him, and then got attacked by a whole load of Hormagaunts that were pretending to be dead.
Knife hands. Oh.
And so the Swarmlord had basically given them an instruction to, like, just basically switch off until told.
Yeah.
So they were like a turned off robot.
Yeah.
And then suddenly he's like, and now, and then switches them all back on, and they all just jump up and like, rah, rah, rah.
Oh.
And although it wasn't enough to like take out the Ultramarines, it delayed them.
Yeah. To getting to Calgar.
And I believe this was where I think this is where Calgar lost both of his arms, if I'm not mistaken.
Wait, so he did survive?
Yeah, so his honor guard managed to fight their way to him and drag him away from the Swarm Lord.
Okay.
And the Swarm Lord's forces. Only because the commander of the honor guard, someone called Aloysius, literally stood in the way of the Swarm Lords and got ripped apart.
Yeah. But it delayed them.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, the last thing we will talk about, really, is the first company of the Ultramarines.
Okay.
Well, okay. So we'll talk about space very quickly because essentially, what happened in space after Calgar was, basically taken off the planet and all this type of thing. They fought. They fought in space, hit and runs, all of those type of things, and the entire fleet, battle fleet, turned up at a really important moment to basically like catch the Tyranids fleet in a kind of like crossfire or that type of thing.
Yeah, good times.
What eventually happened was like they were still outnumbered and they were still like heavily outmatched essentially. um, a battleship, Emperor class battleship, drove itself into the middle of the Hive fleet
Okay, Jesus.
and detonated its warp drives, which caused a rip in reality that dragged the battleship and the Tyranid fleet, like, essentially through the warp and ripped it apart.
Yeah, I mean that'd do that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's some extreme, but I mean, I guess it works to an extent.
Yeah, no, it did work. It destroyed the majority of the Hive fleet, and the remnants were able to be mopped up by the rest of the fleet.
Okay.
What was remaining, essentially, which wasn't that much. And that was the moment where pretty much the war was won but not finished.
Mm-hmm.
The remaining question was like, what's gonna happen to Macrack? Because there's still a fuck ton of Tyranids on it.
Spores and pieces and alive
Mm.
things. Yeah.
So we go back to the third company, who are going through the dark corridors and all of those type of things.
Yep.
Uh, and they got down to the lower levels, the lowest levels of the bunker,
Mm-hmm.
where they found a huge pile of Tyranid bodies. Literally, there were little holes in the piles where the Tyranids were desperately like pushing through. And in the center of the room, which they were all trying to get into, was a group of Terminators, the Ultramarines' first company,
Yeah.
all back to back,
And
dead.
just scrapping.
Oh, they were dead.
Oh, and the Tyranids were like trying to get the noms.
Well, what they found were the piles of Tyranid bodies with holes in,
Yeah.
because the Tyranids were still like pushing through,
Uh-huh.
uh, desperately, as this pile of bodies was like got as high as it could. It was just, and eventually, they managed to get the Terminators, and the Terminators died. So they had completely wiped out the first company of which is like it'd be the equivalent of like wiping out the SAS type
Yeah, like
thing.
the best of the best.
Yeah.
Like, and that means that everyone gets a promotion.
Yeah.
Or not.
The majority of the Ultra Breeds were pretty like, I mean, they completely lost the first company,
Gutted.
which are
Yeah.
their veterans. The majority of the third, and seventh were, killed.
Mm-hmm.
The chapter had lost so much; it took them ages to replenish and to get back to strength.
Yeah.
But while there weren't many survivors of the Battle of Macrack, the ones who were left on the planet, like the majority of them died. I think there are only like a couple survivors, and the ones who went down, like the soldiers who were sent down, not many of them survived either, but they did survive. They did find a body of a hive tyrant,
Ooh.
but because of how much damage it had taken, they weren't sure if it was the swarm lord or not.
Right. Yeah. Also, I wouldn't be trusting a dead body.
Yeah.
Dead Tyranid. We're not messing with that. We're not researching it. Just burn it. Thanks.
However,
Hmm.
they did manage to. Essentially, what happened was they broke High Fleet Behemoth
Mm-hmm.
on Macrack.
So, like, is that done with? It doesn't exist. It does, but it's smaller. Because I don't really know.
So,
Because I'm
yes,
envisioning, like, I know some of them are sort of more tendrily and spread out than others, and obviously Behemoth is like, I'm looking at the map. It's
yeah.
sort of spoked in, but then what about all the ones that are not here yet from Behemoth, or was it a sort of enclosed?
That was essentially the fleet that got consumed by
Mhm.
the warp was essentially the core, the main feature.
Okay.
So I would say essentially there's probably still minor tendrils.
Hmm.
On a galactic scale, it's not that much of a threat. Like the other high fleets would be much more worrying than
Right. It must not
whatever
be
may be
like
left.
updated on this map then.
That's basically how far it got, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
I
like yeah,
see.
it essentially it stopped at Macrack, pretty
Yeah, I'm
much.
like thinking, oh, they've had one success at Macrack, and then not
Yeah.
so much. But okay, that's good to know. Hooray! Because that's a pretty big freaking fleet.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Like,
and where is it? I swear. Yeah, Monius Calgar, I'm pretty sure, had both of his like arms ripped off from the like elbow,
mm,
and they have now replaced that with big chunky. If you do a quick search for Monius Calgar, actually I can send you a quick thing.
I have, yeah, I've got my thing open. It's got, why is this suit so giant?
Well, his shoulders and arms especially are just like
Yeah.
roar. So that's about it about his Calgar, and he got ripped apart by a
Only a bit. Like,
only a bit.
it's not even a third. Like, if his whole arms weren't off.
I think that's what happened. I couldn't find like 100%, but that's what I
Okay.
remember happening. So I might be very wrong. Don't that's something which don't take too
I
much to
have to
heart
quote
because
you on it. That's all I know.
let's just do a very quick lost
um,
his
Control F.
arms.
Arms. Nope. It doesn't say. It doesn't tell me.
Oh, okay. So apparently, from what I can tell, what happened is that he did lose both of his arms,
Hmm.
and they were like kind of replaced and that. But apparently, he got upgraded to a Primaris Marine, which is a whole other thing that we're not going to talk about right now. Oh, he lost his arms and legs. I think he lost his arms and legs.
Uh,
Like that's how badly he was.
yeah. Okay. That's more than a third then.
Yeah. He lost his arms and legs.
Oh.
Originally, but it seems like
Wait. Does he also have a fake eye?
it seems like there may have been a few retcons.
You know what? He's had a hard life. I feel like
Yeah,
he deserved a um promotion.
yeah. No, it seems like there are some things that said he lost his limbs, like all of them, and others say like he just got really badly wounded.
Hmm.
Uh, but there's another thing where it essentially said that he lost a couple of fingers fighting Abaddon, which implies maybe who knows.
He needs to keep
Um,
track of his limbs a little bit better.
yeah. Maybe he just had 8 arms and 8 legs, and they were slowly chopped off until he
Hmm.
looked like a regular man with just 2 arms and 2 legs.
Right.
Who knows?
Okay. I feel like that makes
Uh,
sense.
he does still have ridiculously sized shoulders and arms, so
Yeah.
it is quite funny.
He's
But
swole.
yeah, that's a high fleet, and like the ridiculous amounts of death and destruction a Hive fleet will bring with it.
But you know what? The Ultramarines did a great job.
Let's not give them too much encouragement. They get enough of that already.
The planet is not a dead planet now.
Are you going to side with the Ultramarines because I don't like them?
I thought about it earlier. But in this instance...
They did a good job, yeah.
They did a good job. Okay. You know, they had a lot, they had a lot of power because they're too loved.
Whatever.
By Daddy Emperor. But you know what? They did all right.
They did all right. So yeah, there's more we can talk about for the Tyranids. There's multiple Hive fleets and stuff. I'm sure we'll cover them in the future. But yeah.
Because they're my second faves.
Are they really?
I love them. I actually love them. I think they're great. There's a lot of things that come in that remind me of like fiction I've either read or seen films of, and it's horrible and terrifying, and that's great.
Oh yeah. I really like the mindless, unstoppable vibe they have, which is just terrifying when you have like an individual small planet.
Yeah, like there's no point fighting back because you're just gonna die horribly. So just like at some point, just give up.
You heard it here, everyone. If you are faced with overwhelming odds,
no, against the Tyranids. I mean,
if it doesn't look like you're going to succeed, Tash says, just give up.
Sometimes.
Just let them consume.
Sometimes that is okay. And
open your mouth and let the water in.
Jesus Christ. Okay, look. Shh. Stop. I
this
like
message sponsored by Tashna.
Sponsored by Tashna. You know what? Sometimes it's okay to give up on a thing, like my friendship with Sheepy, because honestly, don't know why I'm here. Ugh, difficult, arduous. But is that us wrapped up? Shall we do a little?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's us. Do we have a subject for next?
Why do you ask me these things when I have forgotten them?
Wait, so Tash, do we have a subject for the next 40,000 layers?
Yes, we do. So for Jennifer March, it's going to be another Necron episode because we have our best friends skipping together down the lane. We're going to cover some more Necron characters, go a little bit more in depth. Because we all miss Treason.
I
told you. Haha.
I have listened and read to the Infinite and Divine, so I can talk about that a little bit too.
Heck yeah, I'm so excited. That is March, and the vote for April is up on Patreon. So let me do my little outro. Thank you so much for supporting the show by watching. Hopefully you have enjoyed it. If you want to check out any of the Patreon posts, please do go over there at patreon.com/40,000 layers. There are posts available for everyone. There are posts available for different tiers of patrons. Patrons get to vote on what the topics will be moving forward. We had a little break there because people kept tying them. But we're going to carry on. You see the models before the videos are out. And thank you so much. So current patrons, thank you for making this happen. We have,
and if you are considering becoming a patron to support the show, know that your support will essentially go into minis, paints, and essentially a small wage for both of us to, and then eventually as things keep going, you'll also unlock another episode.
Dun, dun,
and a drunk episode.
Eventually.
Which I don't think we'll get to, and I'm kind of glad for that because I haven't really drunk anything alcoholic for a couple of years now, and I think it would destroy me. So
yeah. Well, thank you to the current patrons: Thornlord, Ian, Mark, particularly Money, Damned Man, Ramona, V Mushroom, Retrograde Vector, Azian, and Grey Blue One. Thank you. This month we will at this point already have had our guest Katie Peters Plays on the show. Hopefully I'll be able to get a video out for that soon, so keep an eye out. And the video for the videos for March will be starting on the 12th, because I have a delay and I can't record that week, so it's gonna be starting on the 12th. So hopefully you guys don't mind too much, and we will see you there. So thank you, and have a good night.
Sure.
Bye.
You say that because it's like for us.
Okay. Well, and look, everyone should go to bed right now.
Go to bed.
Go to bed. Bye.